Hello, this is Angelia with today's Bible reading. Today's reading comes from 1 Peter 3, Godly Living. In the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of the wives. So see, we're supposed to be a good example for the husbands. I'm not going to make a joke about that. I could, but I'm not going to. But, we're supposed to behave in a godly way and to show our husbands, this is how it's done. As they observe your chaste and respectful behavior, chaste, if you have a husband, he's the only guy you're supposed to be, sleeping with. That's a thing today. They made a whole TV show about it. But, you're supposed to behave yourself. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart. Now see, it doesn't say you shouldn't do that. A lot of people say you shouldn't do that, shouldn't braid, shouldn't wear jewelry. It doesn't say that. It says your adornment must not be merely external, such as braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart. So you're not only supposed to look good on the outside, you're supposed to look good on the inside too. And a lot of people kind of forget that one, that it's the person inside that counts. They're worried about what they see outside. My grandma told me, look good. Even when you feel bad, look good. And so I kind of took her advice on that. But I know there are a lot of people in my life who judged me based on the way I looked. That was all they cared about, was the way I looked. They didn't care who I was on the inside. They were worried about the way I looked. And there were people I kind of let go because they were so concerned about the way I looked, that, any blemish, I had a boyfriend say, oh my God, you don't have makeup on. Put some makeup on, you look pale. Yeah, screw you, buddy. Because if that's all you're concerned about is the way I look, then I don't need you in my life. Because right here it says, the hidden person of the heart. That's the one that needs to look right to God. With the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit. So, if you're gentle and quiet, I've met some women, oh my gosh, loudmouth, cuss like a sailor, and I'm like, wow. Is that even a woman? I don't know. Because personally, I was raised to be a lady. My grandmother was a lady, and her family on back, she's descended from nobility and royalty. So, I was taught to be a lady. Now, not everybody was. My grandma went to finishing school, up in Chicago. So, I did not, but she taught me all that stuff that, really doesn't matter. How many ladies do we have nowadays in America? But, I can tell you which fork you need to be using. I walked with the book on the head for poise and grace, but what's supposed to be mattering here is the gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. So see, if you're being a good, decent person, that's precious in the sight of God. He don't care how you look. He sees the inside of you. That's what's important to him. For in this way, in former times, the holy women also who hoped in God used to adorn themselves. So holy women, so we're holy women. These, let's see, I'm not going to use the word, these male preachers who say women have no place in the ministry. Is that what it really says? No, there is a part where, Paul talks about traditions of men and, no women in the church and blah, blah, blah. That was a belief that the Jews had at the time. But that's not in the new way how it's supposed to be. Being submissive to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And you have become her children if you do what is right without being frightened by any fear. Now, you should be submissive within reason to your husband because he's your husband and you love him and you married him for a reason. Now, does that mean he should be making decisions for your life? Not necessarily, especially if he's not making wise decisions for your life. Does that mean he has the right to abuse you? No, it does not. So these male preachers, who I've heard some say that this is how it's supposed to be, that you're basically supposed to lay down and let the man run over you like a steamroller and do whatever he wants. No, that's not what Jesus would want. And so that's not something that you should want for yourself. And, it's not prideful, to take care of yourself and to stand up for yourself. And do what is right without being frightened by any fear. So we all know we should be doing the right thing. Not being frightened by any fear, that's a little bit harder because the world's pretty scary right now. So, a lot of times I have to be the voice of reason in my home because, the hubby and the son that lives with me, they have anxiety pretty bad. So any little bump in the road, so sometimes I'm like, okay, not that big a deal. Here's what we can do. We can take care of this, do this, that, and the other thing. And sometimes, that's what a woman needs to do because women are more depressed, men are more anxious. So sometimes we have to be the voice of reason and, like I told my husband one day, not everything's a 5-alarm fire. And if he thinks it is, it's time for you to pour a little water on the fire and say, okay, let's bring this down to size. But that's a hard one for humans. Your husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way. So, husbands, you're supposed to live with your wives in an understanding way. Understand, and that was the tag for our charity. Strong women, understanding men, and happy children. Because if men understand, women are different than you. We're not men. We're not little men. We don't want to be little men. We're happy being women. We like it. Most of us. I'm not going to go there. But understand that we're women. We want lives. We want to be happy. And we're different from you. So, as with someone weaker. So, yeah, exactly. Understand that your spouse is probably weaker than you. There are cases where the women are bigger than men. We're not going to go there. But, if you wouldn't be beating up on, someone weaker than you, you shouldn't be beating up on your wife. And there are men who, sexists who say they deserve it if they talk back, she hit me first, blah, blah, blah. But no, again, generally, men are bigger than women, so act like, you're a decent person. Since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life. So you're supposed to honor your wife. You're not supposed to treat her like crap. You're supposed to honor her. She's basically, let's face the facts here. Women have intuition, but what it really is we have 3 times the connection in our corpus callosum. So our logical side and our emotional side talk to each other faster. Men are modal, they have to shift gears, we're automatics, they're, stick shifts. So we process 3 times faster than they do. So men should honor that, and actually there's some Native American societies where the women made the decisions. The women were in charge. They were the tribal council, and they might have had a chief, but the women made decisions. And they understood that. So, honor your wife, because if you go back to Adam and Eve, God said it's not good for man to be alone, and I jokingly say sometimes he's like, oh, it's not good for man to be alone, let's make him a helpmate. But that's a joke. so that your prayers will not be hindered. Because if you're treating your wife like crap and you're praying, is God going to listen to you? No, it just said he wasn't. So there we are. To sum up, all of you be harmonious. So you're supposed to be getting along. You're not supposed to be causing trouble, fighting. You're supposed to be harmonious and getting along. Sympathetic. So, there are things I know that, where someone made a decision and that's why they're in the situation they're in. But be sympathetic and don't point that out to them. A lot of times, especially women, will do that. Well, it's your fault because you did this, that. If you'd made this, if you'd have did this. Well, don't be doing that. Brotherly and sisterly. Kind-hearted. So, with a kind heart, not a mean, spiteful heart. And humble in spirit. Because we could get all cocky and say, we're son and daughter of God, yeah, whatever. But humble in spirit. Because, as we said yesterday in our wisdom, what God gives, he can take away. For not returning evil for evil, or insult for insult, and that's a hard one too for humans. Because if someone does something to us, we feel like doing something to them. We still got that fight or flight thing in the brain, and that's how we feel. And if someone insults us, we feel like insulting them back. So it's much harder to take a step back, take a breath, or bite your tongue, not literally too hard, but just let it go. There was something the other day, someone, made a comment, and I'm just like, I'm going to just let it go. But giving a blessing instead. And remember it said if you pray for your enemies, you're heaping coals upon their head. Now, you shouldn't do it just for that. But, just say, if this person is a mean ass, excuse the language to you, just say, dear God, please bless this person. Mentally, emotionally, whatever it is they need. And let them see how their behavior is affecting their life. Because you can't be mean and nasty to people all the time and expect that they're going to want to be around you. I had a coaching client that had a little problem with that. All these people were being mean to her, but yet she was yelling at people, accusing people of things, physically stepping up on people. But she didn't understand that her behavior was affecting how people treated her. So, for you were called for the very purpose that you might inherit a blessing. So that's what your purpose is. You're going to inherit a blessing. You're going to be an inheritance with Jesus. He said, in my Father's house there are many rooms. If it was not so, I'd have told you. So Jesus gone ahead of us to prepare a way for you so that you can go up there and live with him and God. So, you're going to want to go. So, for the one who desires life, to love and see good days, must keep his tongue from evil. So, if you want to have a long life and a happy afterlife, you need to keep your tongue from evil. And now that's harder to do for us humans. But Jesus said we're not perfect, we're not going to be, and he knows. So, and his lips from speaking deceit. Because if you're deceiving people, then you're doing the wrong thing. You're being dishonest. Excuse me. And you shouldn't be doing that. He must turn away from evil and do good. So, if you're being, not good, doing some evil things, you shouldn't be doing. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, you turn around and head the other way towards the light. He must seek peace and pursue it. So if you're sowing some dissension and things that cause people to fight or whatever, that's not being very peaceful. And you should be pursuing peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. For the eyes of the Lord are towards the righteous, So God's watching the righteous. He's like, hey, they're doing a good job. They're trying. They might not be perfect. I know that, but they're trying, and that's what you want. You want God to notice you, and that you're trying. I have a couple friends who are like the best people I've ever met in the world, and I know God's got His eyes on them like He does the sparrow. So, and His ears attend to their prayer. So a righteous person, God's listening to their prayers more so than He's listening to some, person who's not doing the right thing, but he's still letting his mouth send some up. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. So if you're doing the wrong thing, God's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm against you because what you're doing. So, who is there to harm you if you prove zealous for what is good? Because, it says don't fear people who can kill your body, but the one who can destroy your soul. And that's the beginning of the wisdom, is fear of the Lord. But even if you should suffer for the sake of righteousness, you are blessed, because Jesus suffered for the sake of righteousness. And that's what Jesus said. Anybody who is reviled and despises you or whatever because of me, then consider yourself blessed, because they did it to me, they're going to do it to you too. And do not fear their intimidation, and do not be troubled, but sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence, and keep a good conscience, so that in the thing in which you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ will be put to shame. Now that's an interesting concept in the world nowadays, isn't it? So, you're to be peaceful and to gently explain yourself to other people who come against you, and pray for them, and that way, if they're saying all this bad stuff about you, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. The works are evident of themselves. A good tree gives good fruit. You can't just talk your talk, and you gotta walk your walk. And then, when other people hear this thing, and then they look into it, and they're like, that's not true. And then the person who's saying stuff, then they're shown for what they are, which is petty whatever. For it is better, if God should will it so, that you suffer for doing what is right, rather than for doing what is wrong. So God knows that the right is more important than the wrong. So if you suffer for doing the right thing, that's better than getting a reward for doing the wrong thing. It might not seem like it here on earth, because earth is telling you a different thing. The world is telling you a different thing. The other team is telling you a different thing. But God is telling you to do the right thing. For Christ also died for sins, once for all, the just of the unjust, so that he might bring us to God, having been put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit. My goodness. In which also he went and made proclamation to the spirits now in prison, who once were disobedient, when the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah during the construction of the ark, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. So Jesus went and talked to the spirits now in prison. Now, what do you think that means? Jesus went and talked to the spirits who were imprisoned. Like I said, in Revelations it says everyone's going to get a chance to come before Jesus and decide to believe or not. Yeah, so Jesus is such a good brother to us that he went down and witnessed to the ones down there who once were disobedient. So evidently there were some who listened. When the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah, so as we heard, the days of Noah were pretty rough, and God kept waiting for the people to become good. And it didn't happen, so that's when he sent the flood. During the construction of the ark, in which 8 persons were brought safely through the water, and that's, his sons and their wives, and Noah and his wife. Corresponding to that, baptism now saves you. Not the removal of dirt from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is at the right hand of God, having gone into heaven, after angels and authorities and powers had been subjected to him. So, Jesus saves you. It's not just the washing of the flesh when you get baptized, it's a washing of your spirit. And that's how it's supposed to be, because, Jesus is alive. He's going to come back for us one day. God put Jesus in charge of everything except, the end, and that's his decision. So, Jesus is up there preparing a place for us. Angels and authorities and powers all answer to him, and he is large and in charge. So, if you're not living a godly life, now's the time to think about doing that. Amen. Please like and share so we can spread this word around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go on to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.